It's 4:01.
Oh, are we ready?
Needs to be 4 o'clock.
Oh,
Or 3:59.
3:59. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. And we need to approve the agenda and the minutes for the September 13th meeting. Any changes in the agenda? None?
Motion to approve.
Both? there a
Agenda
second?
and minutes?
What?
Agenda and minutes?
Yeah,
Second?
there's no changes.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And we'll move on to the Cory and Rachelle Christianson application, parcel ID 53-232-2375, case number 2023-7 CUP. Neva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request for a conditional use permit for a 4-unit residential structure and a garage with living quarters at 4 South Shore Drive, zoned FAR 3. The applicant's property includes 5.49 acres. The property is contained entirely within the Forest Agriculture Residential FAR 3 zone district. This use is listed as a conditional use in the FAR 3 zone district for a 4-unit dwelling. The property is zoned on shoreland. The applicants, Cory and Rachelle Christianson, are proposing to build 2 structures to provide housing and long-term rentals for their employees and the public on their property at 4 South Shore Drive. One structure will be a 4-unit residential structure, and the second dwelling will be a living quarters over a garage. Their development plans also include a new septic and well, as well as a 2,088 square foot cold storage building, which already has a land use permit issued. Zoning considerations. This property is located in the FAR 3 zone district, and the development of this property includes this conditional use permit request. The garage with living quarters could have been permitted under a general land use permit as a single-family dwelling if it was a standalone project. However, due to the association with the 4-unit dwelling structure, staff re-noticed the CUP application to include the garage with living quarters within this CUP application. The garage with living quarters can be considered in this CUP request per section 10.03 of the Cook County zoning ordinance, which states as follows. Any use not expressly identified as permitted, conditional, or prohibited use within this ordinance may, at the discretion of the county, be processed as a conditional or interim use. Compatibility with the Cook County Land Use Guide Plan. The Cook County Land Use Guide Plan indicates that affordable housing is an issue in Cook County. Several references to the issues related to the lack of affordable housing are included in this document. Specifically under residential goal and policy number 36, encourage and support efforts by other entities to provide an adequate supply of quality housing with prices affordable to the workforce of Cook County. I've also included the list of the FAR 3 zone district permitted and conditional uses. I'll make a note that the principal purpose of the FAR 3 zone district is to provide for permanent and seasonal areas at a medium density. Farming and other rural activities are also allowed. I did highlight that conditional use number 8 specifically is listed for a 2 to 4 family dwelling in a single structure. On page 3 of the staff narrative, or 7 of 23 of your packets, there is a map that shows the subject property, which is located at the intersection of Devil's Track Road and South Shore Drive. And also a picture of the cold storage structure, which was permitted. The criteria for reviewing conditional use permits is listed at the top of page 4. For background, the property is located at the corner of Devil Track Road and South Shore Drive. The land immediately south of the property is federal Superior National Forest, and the land immediately west is private, undeveloped. All surrounding land is zoned FAR 3. A land use permit was approved in October 2022 for a 90 by 60 pole building under 2 conditions. The structure is not permitted for habitation or for pressurized water, water use appliances, and number 2, the drip line of the structure must meet 85-foot setback from the center line of South Shore Drive. For site conditions and considerations, there are no issues with impervious surface coverage, wetlands, nor slope. The site plan indicates a proposed septic treatment area, and the application states a new well and septic system will be installed as part of this proposal. For noise, the proposed use of residential long-term rentals are unlikely to generate significant noise to neighboring properties. For lighting, the application does not identify if outdoor lighting will be included. This could be a discussion point for the applicant and planning commission to further explore to ensure that outdoor lighting won't impact neighboring properties. A condition could be considered which requires any outdoor lighting to remain downcast on the subject property. For safe access, this property is located at the corner of South Shore Drive and Devils Track Road, providing easy access to public roads. Safe access from South Shore Drive to the existing driveway supports this proposal. There is adequate space on this 5.49 acre parcel to provide parking. I had a note, my formatting must have gotten messed up, so I apologize for the text after that says something about a picture, because that's not there. It must have gotten removed. This application was publicly noticed in the Cook County News Herald on August 25th. 13 letters of notification were sent to adjacent property owners as well as county departments. For public comments, we received one written comment by the neighbor immediately west of the subject property, Nick Henke, and a second written comment was submitted by his representative, Suzanne Glasser. These comments were received after the initial noticing, which only included the 4-unit dwelling within the CUP notice. After receiving these comments, staff postponed the public hearing to renotice the application to include the garage with living quarters within the conditional use permit application. Both of these comments were opposed to the request. The comments indicate that the proposal is not permitted and they have concerns with building height, and also refer to the city's comprehensive plan, which is not pertinent to this project area. Staff recommendations for consideration. Affordable and rental housing in Cook County is a topic regularly brought up by the Cook County EDA, HRA, and other organizations. The applicants have indicated they would like this housing to be provided for their own staff. It is interesting to note that the Cook County Land Use Guide Plan does indicate that there are adequate amounts of affordable housing on page 16. However, in other locations of this document, it also cites that affordable housing is unaffordable on pages 2, 4, 7, 26, and 31. So it's a little conflicting, but nonetheless, if approved, the following conditions may be considered. 1, the property shall conform to Minnesota Rule 7080 and the Cook County septic requirements. 2, all outdoor lighting shall be downcast. And 3, parking spaces shall comply with section 5.16 of the Cook County zoning ordinance, which is 1 9 by 20 parking space per dwelling unit at minimum.
Thank you. Is Mr. or Mrs. Christianson present? Okay. Would you like to go to the microphone? State your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Cory Christianson. My address is 205 Fireweed Lane, which is not the address that we're talking about today, but that's Grand Marais, Minnesota.
Thank you. Do you have anything further you'd like to add?
Nope, she covered it pretty well, I think.
Thank you. Is there anyone that wishes to speak further on this application? Anyone else wish to speak about the application? Okay, we'll close to public comment and have the board discuss it. Okay. Anyone wish to start? Comments? Questions? Nobody can talk.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I visited the site with the road access level property. Foresee any problems with drainage or.
How about accessing the driveway and the safety of coming out onto the Devil Track Road or the South Shore Road?
Both were easy.
Easy, okay, good. That was one question I had. Charlie?
I don't necessarily have any concerns at this point. Still
Okay.
catching up a little bit.
Paul?
Madam Chair, I just agree with what Brad mentioned. The access seemed very good. It's actually a very nice location for affordable housing. There's good access. It's a good site. A lot of forested land.
Okay.
We haven't been up there lately. The tamaracks are really, really nice this week, too.
It's there. I'd make a motion to approve with the 3 conditions met here.
Anyone want to second that?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Now it'll be recommended to the county board.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you guys have fun.
You might want to
You'll
just
miss me, won't ya?
stick around for the fun of it. Okay, let's call the Board of Adjustment to
I'm gonna
order.
spend some time with Rodney.
And I need a motion to approve the minutes for the September meeting and approve the agenda.
I would motion to approve
Both.
both.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move to the new business. And that is Christine. I don't know all these names. I can't guess how many people are here for that one. Maybe two. The application for case number 2022-24V, Neva.
Yeah, a sign of my poor editing skills. So Thomas and Catherine Peterson are the representatives for this application, are the people that are present tonight for it.
Okay.
This is a variance request for relief from Cook County zoning ordinance number 37, section 4.08C, to place an accessory structure at a reduced road setback 24 feet from center line where a minimum of 50 feet is required, located at 308 South Hungry Jack Road. The applicant's property includes 1.45 acres with approximately 235 feet of Hungry Jack Lake shoreline. The parcel is entirely contained within the Lakeshore Residential Zone District for the first 300 feet and with some FAR1 zone district on the southeast corner. Newly created lots within the LSR zone must be 1 acre in size and 150 feet wide at the structural setback. Hungry Jack Lake is classified as a recreational development lake. The applicants, Catherine and Thomas Peterson, are requesting relief from the South Hungry Jack Lake Road setback requirement to place an accessory structure, a 24 by 24 unattached garage on the property at 308 South Hungry Jack Road. The structure is proposed to be placed approximately 24 feet from center line. The road setback requirement is 50 feet from center line. I've included the ordinance citation there with that requirement. For background, this property currently has a cabin, storage shed, and outhouse. The property is per county records. The property is bisected by South Hungry Jack Road with a cabin and proposed garage location on the south side of the road. The lake setback requirement removes any conforming building location on the north side of the road. Wetlands are present on the south side of the road. For site conditions and considerations, the garage will not have plumbing and will not require additional septic capacity. The septic components are near the house and prohibit the garage to be built closer to the house. There's no issues with impervious surface coverage. Wetlands are present on the property and are a primary factor in the selection of this building location. Please see the wetland image on page 4 of the staff narrative, which was created by Cook County Wetland Specialist Mitch Travis with additional details. On that site plan, the green indicates the location of approximate wetland locations. So the garage is proposed to be located in a location outside of the wetland area, between the wetlands and the road, essentially. Slope, there does appear to be a steep slope, maybe a bluff next to the house. However, there are no steep slopes or bluff features in the proposed garage location. Drainage from the proposed garage will flow into the wetlands away from Hungry Jack Lake. This area is at the terminus of South Hungry Jack Road. The properties along this stretch are vacant or residential, with Hungry Jack Outfitters immediately west of the subject property. Property records for the subject property indicate that the house was built in 1982 before zoning rules were in place. Property records for the non-conforming structures west of the property indicate that that structure was built in 1952. So this is just to say that the other structures that are non-conforming along this stretch of road predate zoning ordinances. For public noticing, the application was legally noticed in the Cook County News Herald on September 29th. 12 letters of notification were sent to adjacent property owners as well as county departments and the DNR hydrologist. No written comments were received during the public comment period from neighbors. The DNR area hydrologist noted that they did not find anything controversial or problematic about this request. Staff recommendations for consideration. The proposed location for this garage meets the intent to avoid wetland impacts as well as being protective of the lakeshore development. The garage location utilizes an existing fill location. The road setback is traditionally a setback to be protective of the public safety to the traveling public. This location along South Hungry Jack Road is near the terminus of a dead-end road, which leads to a private business, Hungry Jack Outfitters. 3 other structures are already located along this stretch of road with relaxed setbacks. If approved, the following conditions may be considered. The garage shall remain a non-habitable structure. 2, if pressurized plumbing is to be added, it must be in compliance with all county and state septic requirements, and the Cook County Land Services offices must be contacted prior to pressurization. And 3, the structure shall be no closer than 24 feet from center line. I also included the evaluation criteria for evaluating a variance in your packet.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to speak, excuse me, regarding this application? If so, you can step up to the microphone.
Okay. We could answer any questions you have, but as stated, our property, when we bought it, was not wetlands, but Spen Lake, which is up higher than us, was protected by a beaver dam, and the beaver has disappeared, so all the water, Spen Lake is now about 3 feet lower than it was when we bought the land, but we know where the water is. It's now on our property. So the spot that we've picked out, Harry Nolan, who owned the land before us almost 50 years ago, had started a spot there because he was going to build a road behind. So that's the only place that isn't wetland right now on our property, other than when our cabin is. So we kind of got hit by a perfect storm when the beaver died. But we'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
And can you state your name and address?
I'm sorry. Which address would you like, up there or?
Whichever one you get mail at.
Okay. We're Thomas and Catherine Peterson. We live at 9500 College View Road, Unit 107 in Bloomington.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else wish to speak on this application? We'll close it to the public comment, and talk to the board. Let's start with you, Paul.
Yeah, it certainly seems like the best location, looking at this map and the wetland delineation and the topography on it. I mean, it's, to me, the best faith effort to place that building
Right.
anywhere on the land, so straightforward to me.
Yeah, I went up and did a site visit there yesterday, and looking at the way everything was laid out, it is the best use of the land. It's
Right.
in order to fulfill this
And
requirement.
it's not a variance from the lakeshore setback, it's a variance from the road, which is a
Mhm.
very,
There's a lot of
low-impact
buildings pretty
road.
close to the road there, yeah.
yeah. Charlie?
Yeah, I'm definitely familiar with the area and think it fits pretty well.
Okay. So, is the variance consistent with the goals and policies of the land use plan? Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Is the proposed use of the property allowed in the land use district? Yes.
Yes.
Is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner?
Yes.
Yes.
Has the property owner established that the practical difficulty involved is due to circumstances unique to the property?
Yes.
Yes.
Will,
Let me, as a reminder, Madam Chair, if you guys can elaborate upon yes to give the specific findings, that
Okay.
would be particularly helpful.
okay, on number 4, I think
Mhm.
that probably is the one that we need to elaborate, and
Yes,
Yeah.
the contours of the property, so just there yesterday, is such that with where the wetland is located, you cross the road and then you're immediately on a downhill slope towards the lake, which is not very far away from that point of view. This one piece of ground provides them a piece of land that does not impact any wetlands, does not increase it. It's set back from the road, it's furthest from the lake, and is in keeping with their desire to be somewhat congruous in the sense of being able to move easily to the garage
Right.
and park things.
Okay, thank you.
And in, yeah, being in the road setback, I think, in this instance, is not a public safety concern,
Right,
given the low traffic on the road.
right. And on number 5, will approving the variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Yes, absolutely. It was very similar construction in the area.
And has the property owner established that the practical difficulty involves more than economic consideration alone?
Yeah,
Yeah, given the land.
that's very straightforward.
Okay, is there a motion to approve this variance?
Motion to approve with the 3 conditions as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. The second application is John and Linnea Sweeter's variance request. 2023-25V, Sweeter's packet. Neva?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This application is being represented by Larry Bowen as our authorized agent representative. It's a variance request for relief from the Cook County Zoning Ordinance Number 37, Section 7.05, to expand an existing non-conforming structure at a reduced Lake Superior setback, which would be 20 to 23 feet from shoreline, where a minimum of 40 feet is required, located at 5552 County Road 35 in Lutsen. The applicant's property includes 3.34 acres with approximately 456 feet of Lake Superior shoreline. The parcel is contained entirely within the single-family residential R1 zone district. Newly created lots within the R1 zone on Lake Superior must be 1 acre in size and 200 feet wide at the structure setback. This property is within the North Shore Management Zone of Lake Superior. The applicant, John Schweiters, is represented by his agent, Larry Bowen. The variance is requesting relief from the Lake Superior structure setback requirement to expand the existing garage at 5552 County Road 35. The garage expansion includes the addition of a second story, as well as remodeling the garage into a 2-story, 55 by 30-foot habitable structure. The remodel includes a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom with pressurized water. The garage is located 20 to 22 feet from Lake Superior shoreline, which exhibits recent erosion. I included the ordinance citation there that lists the general development Lake Superior classification, which has a 40-foot building setback from the ordinary high water level. This property has been in Schweiter's ownership since 2003. The previous owner, Robert Lindgren, received a variance in 1986 to place this garage at a 30-foot vegetation line setback from Lake Superior. Variance records indicate that this was a setback of approximately 76 feet from the water's edge. Historic aerial imagery shows that the garage appears to have been built according to those setback standards. A significant change to the shoreline vegetation between the garage and Lake Superior occurred sometime between 2018 and 2021, where the trees between the garage and the lake disappear, and a significant amount of erosion has occurred, with the shoreline slumping into Lake Superior. The photos on pages 4 and 5 show the shoreline's changes from 2009 to 2021, with the variance approved distances approximately identified. What you'll see between these different aerial photos is the blue lines indicating that distance from the garage 30 feet in, and the blue line of the garage 78 feet in. Those are the same lines between those different aerial photos for comparison. Just kind of see the shoreline change over time. For site conditions and considerations, the development plans include using the existing septic system to serve the proposed living quarters. A septic compliance inspection will be required. For impervious surface coverage, although the structure is proposed to remain in the same footprint of the existing garage, there is a proposed increase in impervious surface coverage as shown in the application on sheet A101B, which shows a deck on the second story with an overhang. There is a pre-existing driveway within the shore impact zone of this property. Otherwise, the impervious surface is within the allowable amount of the acreage. This driveway specifically would not be allowed today under today's zoning standards because roads and parking areas and driveways must meet shoreline structure setbacks, and they also must not be placed within the shore impact zone when other reasonable and feasible placement alternatives exist. Wetlands have not been identified as a consideration for this proposal. Slope, there is a hill behind the cabin, however, it's not a bluff feature. Shoreline erosion, the shoreline between the garage and Lake Superior has changed over the last decade, leading to high erosion and significantly decreased buffer between the building development and the lake. The historic aerial imagery shows the shoreline has eroded significantly over the years with a notable decrease in shoreline vegetation. An increase in turf grass is a potential contributor to the exacerbated erosion. The application indicates a desire to develop a plan to put up a retaining wall for Lake Superior and add vegetation. No further details are included yet with the application. Understand what that plan would include. The Cook County Soil and Water Conservation District was consulted by the applicant to provide technical review of this project, indicating that seawalls are problematic due to the interruption of natural sediment transport along Lake Superior, among other impacts. The Soil and Water District memo indicates that landscaping and layout development of the property is not protective to Lake Superior's water quality in the form of turf grass mowing up to the shoreline and impervious surface coverage within the shore impact zone. Please refer to the enclosed Soil and Water District technical memo for further details. The application was legally noticed in the Cook County News Herald on September 29th. 10 letters of notification were sent to adjacent property owners as well as county departments and the DNR hydrologist. No written comments from adjacent property owners were received during the written comment period. Cook County Soil and Water Conservation District's technical memo has kind of been mentioned already. The following specific recommendations were made for consideration. The shoreline buffer, as is not adequate with the mowed turf grass maintained up to the eroding shoreline. Impervious surfaces next to the shoreline don't help filter stormwater runoff. Seawalls are not a recommended shoreline management structure, and alternative stabilization techniques should be considered. For the DNR, area hydrologist provided comments regarding this request. The DNR recommends denial of the variance request, citing of practical difficulty, among other reasons. One quote, "There are no circumstances unique to the property that would prevent compliance with the ordinance. Other lakeshore lots are also subject to shoreline erosion, and the lot has sufficient area to construct additional living space that meets all required setbacks." Additional details of the DNR's analysis are included in their memo. They did provide recommendations for best management practices to control stormwater runoff. Staff recommendations for consideration. Upon review of the application, staff have not identified a valid practical difficulty necessitating the need for the variance. The reasons provided by the applicant in the applications are that it's more economical to remodel the building, the existing building, versus rebuild to accommodate a growing family. From the staff's perspective, this application does not establish a practical difficulty, as we're required to review them outlined in Minnesota State Statute 394.27 or the Cook County zoning ordinance. When reviewing variances, it is important to keep in mind that it's the burden of the applicant to demonstrate that a practical difficulty is present, necessitating the need for the variance. This property has had recent shoreline destabilization and significant erosion immediately next to the garage. Before stepping forward with major investments in expanding the garage, staff encouraged the property owners to consider all the options for development in light of the erosion activity on the property. A shoreline stabilization project may have some success, but sometimes these projects fail and ultimately do not provide permanent protection from Lake Superior storm surges. I did forget to include this Understanding Coastal Erosion Guide for landowners, so I can send that to the landowners separately. It just essentially lists pros and cons of different management strategies. Among the options to consider managing shoreline erosion include relocating further development further from the lake shore. This is a conforming parcel given its acreage and water frontage, and alternative buildable areas exist to accommodate the additional living space. If the Board of Adjustment moves to approve this request, staff encourage the Board of Adjustment to identify findings of fact. The following conditions could be considered. The property shall conform to Minnesota Rule 7080 and the Cook County septic requirements. 2, no increase in impervious surface area is permitted within the shore impact area, shore setback area, with a proposed deck overhang on the second story included in that prohibition. 3, a land use permit for this expansion shall not be issued until a shoreline stabilization project has been completed with a restored vegetative buffer with deep-rooted shoreline plantings of herbaceous plants, shrubs, and trees to the zoning administrator's approval. With that condition, I just want to note that it is a really strong part of this application to try to stabilize that shoreline. It's just without a lot of details right now, we wouldn't really know what we're approving that based on. We don't actually have a plan. So I tried to give as much of my ability to help out with that vagueness, but it's just really a bit of an unknown at this point. Obviously, I don't want to invest money in a shoreline plan, not knowing if they'll get the variance. So we can talk further about that if you have more questions. And then item 4, a gutter or catchment system or vegetation conducive to water retention shall be included on all new or proposed structures to divert precipitation and snowmelt away from Lake Superior or per a drainage plan in accordance with the Soil and Water District staff recommendations.
Thank you. Is Mr. Bowen here?
Yep.
Would you like to step to the microphone and,
Correct.
and if you have something to add?
I don't really, 40 pages of information should be enough. It's a practical application, I think, feasible for the owner economically. It's
Yeah.
a good way to get space without adding another building.
Oh,
That's about it.
okay. Thank you. We'll close the public comment and,
Madam
Go-
Chair, you didn't actually give the general public comment opportunity to speak.
is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Thank you. Keep me in line. Okay, board. Paul?
I mean, I'm pretty concerned about that actively eroding shoreline coming closer, frankly. I think my initial take is, given other spaces on the property, it doesn't make sense to allow this variance to add to this building when there's an imminent threat of the shoreline. If we had a proposal with a more specific shoreline management strategy, I think that would be worth considering, but without that information, it's hard to
Right.
move forward with it.
And I was, if I may, I was visiting the property yesterday, and quite a lot of recent soil disturbance with I think the recent addition of the paved driveway. It seems relatively new, and a lot of grass seed was planted. So I have steep terrain in my property, so look at the vegetation and how to retain the soil. And so similarly, looking at the approach to it on, which would be both the northeast side of the garage, the southeast side of the garage, so it's facing towards Lake Superior and along that driveway. It's just, the soil erosion has been considerable in the recent time period. Other options available.
Regardless
also
of
key
whether this is
consideration.
approved, that should be looked at.
Yeah, I agree.
The garage may be in the lake,
Right.
whether that has a second
Second
story or not.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Charlie?
It is hard not to look at this as more of a financial decision than as far as the land use side of it.
Right.
If there's other buildable spots, we really have a hard time granting it based on
Well,
what we've got.
We haven't had demonstrated a practical difficulty other than it's economically less expensive to do this than, and you're within the setback of the, you're right on the edge of Lake Superior with a new residence.
I mean, and Larry looked like he had something else to add.
Yeah.
But I've done a number of these shoreline projects, and definitely stabilizing them is doable. It just needs some pretty good planning to do it, so.
Right. Mr. Bowen?
I was just gonna add that, can it be contingent on development of that, or fixing that shoreline up?
I don't think so. There needs to be, and I have stood pretty tall on this, if there's another site on the property to build a structure, there really isn't a good reason to allow a variance without a practical difficulty clearly demonstrated, and I'm not seeing it.
I think if you could show that if the slope met a bluff criteria, or if there was some wetlands concerns,
It wouldn't have-
reasons to keep it there,
Right.
then this wouldn't be too
Right.
difficult, but it's lacking those reasons, I think.
Right.
So fixing the shoreline is not gonna help at all.
I think it might be necessary regardless. I also saw there's a spot where it looks like there's a barricade where the driveway is right there. You know,
That there's a what? Yeah.
there's like a guardrail on the pictures. There's a guardrail.
Which page are you looking at?
It's on one of the maps, or if you look, page 31 of 93. In the trees, I don't know if they've been removed or have washed away,
The trees in the front?
between the garage and the lake.
Yeah, that was erosion.
There's a planter box there.
They just failed.
That's
and
a
they
planter box?
died.
Okay. Good to know.
I definitely see the practical reason of using the existing footprint. That's
Yeah.
definitely, but I'm
I think it's a
having a
want.
hard time.
That's the challenge. I mean, if we hold ourselves to the criteria of the practical difficulty, and there are other sites that are, make sense. And then
I mean, if you
you
look
clearly
on,
see this shoreline damage that's occurred over the last few years. It's a tough one.
on page 30 of 93, the first picture, that's the first one, it's an 09. There's a lot of good room to put a structure on that side and meet setbacks and not require a variance, from what I can tell. It's the
Probably
same,
wouldn't, but it would cost a lot more money.
money's not a consideration,
It isn't.
no.
That's the problem we're having.
That's not a,
It specifically rules it out. It says economic
yeah,
considerations.
we'll go
cannot
through the
permit.
checklist.
It's one of those things where it's,
Okay,
Good shoreline projects are, I mean, it's not insurmountable. That shoreline can be protected pretty reasonably, but it's the economic consideration that's really a hurdle for us based on the statutes, so.
right. So I need a motion.
Motion to deny this variance request in that it doesn't demonstrate a practical difficulty.
Is there a second?
no second.
Further discussion?
You're gonna go through the findings, Madam Chair?
Yep. Okay, in discussion, we'll go through the checklist. Number 1, is the variance consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan?
I think we could argue that it is. We could argue it either way.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's not against the land use plan.
Right.
Number 2, is the proposed use of the property allowed in the land use district in which the property is located? And that is yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the Cook County zoning ordinance?
I think the proposed use is reasonable, it's just that we have other sites and the only real, I
Right.
don't know, that's a tough one. Sorry.
Well, the use, yeah,
It's a Lake Superior home
right.
or second home, and it is,
Expansion is reasonable.
yeah. Has the property owner established that the practical difficulty involved is due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the property owner?
No, I don't think
No.
so.
And why?
And given that there are other building sites available and the risk for erosion, we're looking at proving something that falls outside the parameters within which we can operate.
Right.
Well, it was actually created by the previous owner.
With a variance.
Yeah.
And So I think we've established that the practical difficulty does not exist. Okay. Will approving the variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Yes.
Yeah.
And has the property owner established that the practical difficulty involves more than economic consideration alone?
No,
Do not believe
that's
so.
the hangup. That
On
there are
this-
other building sites available
Right,
on the parcel.
right. And on the checklist, if one question is answered no, the variance has to be denied. So there's two on this one that,
All right.
okay. So let's vote on the motion. Motion has been made to deny this request. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion to deny. Thank you. Okay, the next request is Austin Danisic, variance request for relief. Case number 2023-26V. Neva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a variance request for relief from the Cook County zoning ordinance number 37, section 10.06D and 7.14, to place a platform and near it within the bluff impact zone and at a reduced bluff setback where a minimum of 30 feet is required, located at 195 Boone Lake Road. The applicant's property includes 1.18 acres with approximately 245 feet of Boone Lake shoreline. The parcel is contained entirely within Lakeshore Residential Zone District. The lot size requirements are 1 acre and 150 feet wide. Loon Lake is categorized as a recreational development lake and includes a 100-foot structure and septic treatment area setback from the water. The lot is a part of the Loon Lake Home Sites, a 1990 MNDNR plat, which converted state-leased lots into private ownership. The parcel exhibits a moderate to steep slopes, 20 to 35%, and bluff features are present. The applicant, Austin Danisic, is requesting relief from the bluff setback requirement to allow a 24 by 32 deck platform and a 24-foot diameter, 12-foot tall yurt on his property on Loon Lake. He lives at the property year-round with his family. The property is constrained by setback issues from the lake and bluff features. The zoning ordinance does require limitations on development along bluffs and within the bluff impact area, and those citations are included in the staff narrative. Background: since purchasing the property in 2016, Mr. Danisic has applied for and received 2 variances to develop the property. Resolutions for those variances are included in this packet. The property has an outhouse. For impervious surface coverage, no issues for impervious surface coverage. The parcel is well vegetated with a mature forest cover. Sorry, my sentence fell off there in my narrative. I got a phone call, I think. There's no issues with wetlands. First slope. This variance started with Mr. Danisic reaching out to our office and working with our land use specialist, Mitch Travis, to try to find a conforming building site. During those meetings, Mitch did his best to try to identify a top of bluff to see where that setback would begin. But because of the type of slope that it is here, it's really going to end up needing a surveyor to come down to that 18% determination in the way that we technically determine a top of bluff when it's not a very clear feature. And it's very possible that's just not even on this. So essentially, long story short, we determined that the whole property is a bluff unless they chose to get a surveyor. So that was the option we provided them, is you either move forward and work with a surveyor and see if they can identify a top of bluff and then a corresponding conforming location to build, which seemed unlikely even to find that with a surveyor. Or option 2, we just agree that the whole property is a bluff and you kind of need a variance to build anywhere else along this slope. So here we are with option 2, just to presume that the whole property is a slope bluff. So it is due to that complexity of the top of bluff feature. It is the highest point of a 50-foot horizontal segment that exceeds 18% in slope. So you have to grab this 50-foot string and go up the slope line and try to find that point that's exceeding 18%. You get going pretty high up the slope line on slopes like this. So I'm happy to elaborate more on that if that wasn't clear. For public noticing, the application was legally noticed in the Cook County News Herald on September 29th. 16 letters of notification were sent to adjacent property owners as well as county departments and the DNR hydrologist. One comment letter was submitted by Mary Halverson Waldo, opposed to the request, citing concerns with conformity and visual impacts to the lake. The DNR area hydrologist provided a letter which does not oppose the request, but provides considerations such as the following. The parcel of land is composed primarily of bluff features that do not allow for development that meets bluff setback standards. The property has existing legal nonconforming structures that do not meet the setback standards. Development potential is limited on this parcel due to topography, and that none of the difficulties for developing were created by the landowner. The owner has demonstrated that because of the topography of the parcel, no other alternatives exist for development within the property that meets setback standards. Based on the lack of developable land that meets ordinance requirements, one could argue that there is no capacity for this parcel to support any more development. Soil and Water Conservation District provided a technical memo with information indicating that Loon Lake is a deep, clear lake with good water quality supporting lake trout. Best management practices for this property and project include good stormwater management and a healthy shoreline buffer. I should note that this is just a bluff setback. It is meeting the lake setback for this location. For staff recommendations for consideration, there does not appear to be a conforming location on this lot to achieve the placement of this modest-sized structure. The topography of this property significantly limits the buildable location. The proposed building location for the deck and yurt are located meeting the lake setback as well as the road and property line setbacks. The type of development, yurt and deck, will have less impact than a traditionally built structure with associated development fixtures such as sidewalks and patios. This request appears to be a reasonable balance, balancing the interest of the property owner with the unique restrictive topographic features of the property. If approved, the following conditions may be attached to this request. 1, the property shall conform to Minnesota Rule 7080 and the Cook County septic requirements. The property shall actively manage water runoff to prevent erosion of the bluff through the best management practices. The variance is approved for the deck and yurt dimensions as noted in the application, a 24 by 32 deck platform and a 24-foot diameter, 12-foot tall yurt. The applicant is encouraged to establish understory vegetation below the tree canopy, including herbaceous forbs and shrub species to help stabilize the bluff and slow the flow of water downhill.
Okay. It's someone here who wishes to comment?
My name is Austin Danisic. I live at 195 Loon Lake Road, Grand Marais, Minnesota. I guess I just want to respond to the one letter of opposition. We do conform to the lake setback, as Eva mentioned, and the yurt is going to be green in color, so it should blend in with the forest nicely.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to comment? We'll close the public hearing. From the board? Did you visit?
I did.
Brad?
It was a little, my mapping program had serious problems. I was all over out there.
Welcome to Cook County.
Yes, so I did find the land, the property, the slopes and what you're dealing with are just, that lot has got, it's just a challenge from start to finish. I did find the site where you were preparing for the yurt. It's about the only place that they could put it on that piece of property. It was, a slightly more level spot than about everything else, which was either going up or down.
Okay.
They agree with the putting of, footings in the posts as opposed to more soil disturbance.
Mm-hmm.
I see the plan in terms of they've left the site very vegetated to protect it from a runoff perspective or any sloughing of soil. Awful lot of rock involved in there. I do have a question. Did you run into any bedrock when you were digging?
No.
Oh, really? Okay. But it's a,
Challenge.
the whole property's a challenge. It's just,
Right.
is about as much of a challenge as I've seen any lot I've looked at so far. So,
All right.
but a little sympathetic for what they're dealing with. I have a bluff on my property too, and it's not even close to what you're doing.
And Charlie?
Given that they're meeting the lakeshore setbacks, and the obvious, conservative nature of the application, I don't see any issue with it.
And we're not gonna worry about making them get a survey to establish whether it's a bluff or not?
I don't
Since
think
it's the
so. I
only
think-
spot on
I've
the
been there,
property?
I don't foresee any value in that investment.
Okay. And Paul?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, in juxtaposition, it's the exact case. If there's no other buildable sites, then
Okay.
if this is the most straightforward level site,
Okay.
Brad saw, I take that.
Is there a motion to be made?
I would motion to approve with the 4 conditions as written.
Is there a second?
Second?
Further discussion, we'll answer the questions. Is it consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive land use?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the proposed property allowed, proposed use allowed in the land use district in which it's located?
Yes.
Yes. Specifically, I think also just to mention in general provisions that it as a guest house is allowed for in addition to the cabin.
Right. Is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner?
Yes.
Yes.
Very.
Yep.
Has the property owner established the practical difficulty involved is due to circumstances unique to the property and not created by the property owner?
Yes, emphasis on unique. That property is very unique, for the record.
Due to the fact that it may be entirely a bluff?
Yes, and it's just a steep property on that edge of the lake, and, you know, they platted them some time ago, and they
Right.
bought into it, and the property is what it is.
Right. And will approving the variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Yes, there were
Yes.
quite a few cabins that were much closer to the lake.
And does the cabin meet the setback to the lake?
I don't think so.
If
No,
not, there's not
cabin,
much of a difference, because there
The
isn't
cabin
a...
meet the
The
setback?
yurt's much further back than the cabin.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
the cabin's like 90 feet, and the
All right.
yurt is,
Okay,
That's close.
but that was grandfathered,
Well, it got one of the recent variances was for an addition onto their cabin.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Has the property owner established that the practical difficulty involves more than economic consideration? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is there all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It's approved.
thank you.
Okay. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming, guys. Yeah.